Must-Have Classics, where we restore history one classic at a time. Welcome back to what's now part number 6 of our 1977 International Scout II restoration. In today's episode, we are finally going to get this thing back on the road, but to do that, we've got to finish up this engine and get it re-gasketed. We got to do valve cover gaskets, put a new thermostat in it, oil pan gasket. I'm already starting on the exhaust here because I want to get the exhaust done and the valve covers done, and then I want to get these inner fenders back on this thing. From there, I'm actually finally going to have the parts to finish up the rear end, so we'll get that done next after we get the motor ready to go. As you really know, in the last episode, we ended up being on some parts. I'm actually filming this right after this because I want to take the time to do this next. So that's what we're going to get started on, is go ahead and get this done. If you haven't checked out the videos previously of this thing, please do. We have been doing a full frame off restoration on this beauty. We're getting pretty close to be able to start moving on pretty quick and get this thing ready to go back home and finally get enjoyed the way it's supposed to. But first up, let's get this engine taken care of, and then we'll go from there. Alright, now that I got the exhaust done, I went ahead and pulled these valve covers and just show everyone what we're working with here. As you can tell, there's not any sludge or anything like that. Inside looks pretty clean. I'll show you the other side here. So it definitely helps solidify the fact that this motor was rebuilt and had very few miles after that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my new valve cover gaskets in, get these valve covers back on. Then from there, I'll go ahead and start working on this thermostat here. I've got a new bypass hose, new thermostat, new gasket. So I'll get that pulled off next after that and get that ready to replace there. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and get these inner fenders back on because I really want to move it over to a different lift just so I can do everything underneath a lot easier because this lift here doesn't work very well. So I'd rather use the other one. That way I can get up underneath, do all the rear brakes, oil pan, finish up the steering. As you can tell, I don't have that hooked up. It's just kind of mocked together so at least steer. That way we can get everything together. But let me go ahead and get these valve covers on and start taking that thermostat apart. All right, so that'll do it for the top of the engine. We went ahead and got the thermostat replaced. If you're wondering why I had to get the vacuum cleaner out, it's actually because there was a mouse nest on top of that old thermostat. Luckily, the thermostat was in there, so therefore we didn't get anything into the rest of the engine. I looked in there, everything looked fine. So I got thermostat replaced, valve cover gaskets are done, exhaust is done. So next up, I actually want to go ahead and get these inner fenders on both sides. I had fit one the other day, so I may have to actually remove this again just to get it to clear over, but I'll hope I get lucky instead. From there, then I'll be able to start getting that radiator in there and everything else. And then I'll actually get the shop rearranged, get this moved over to the other lift, and that way I can do the oil pan gasket and get the brakes and everything else done. Other than that, it's really moving along pretty quickly. Didn't take me very long to get all that done. It's definitely worth it to do it. If you have one, do it yourself. It's really simple. So we'll get that inner fenders on, and I'll decide if I want to bolt them in. I may not bolt them in. I may just mock them up for right now, or at least get a bolt here in the front. So let me get those inner fenders, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I actually got carried away a little bit when I was putting these inner fenders on, and I went ahead and decided to go ahead and get this radiator in, the upper radiator hose. And let me just say, this thing is looking really good compared to what we started with all the mouse poop and everything else. So everything up here is about as far done as I can go on it. So from here, I'll actually get the lift cleaned up and get it up over on the lift. That way I can do the oil pan gasket and the fuel pump. Then I can run the fuel lines and finish the brakes. But let me just show you here that it's finally starting to look like a Scout again, which is great to see. I may even just get motivated and set the front fenders on it just so I can kind of see it look like a Scout again. But I don't know if I will. I may just leave it like this for right now. But I'll get that lift cleaned up. We'll get it up in the air and go from there. All right, as you can tell, I got it up on the lift now. And with it up here in the air, now I can finally get to this oil pan, get this oil pan gasket done. Then I'm gonna get the lower radiator hose done here, finish up the oil change, and then I can start working on some fuel lines and getting the fuel pump in. Right now, it's actually got, let's see if I can find them. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got, well, actually not much of the fuel line left now. It's been cut out. So I'm gonna end up running some I've got some new metal line. I'll probably run through there. So we have new, fresh fuel line, and then we can actually get really close to getting this motor to run. I'm still waiting on the rear brake drums. They haven't come in yet. So we'll see what we can do here with this motor. Hopefully they'll come in today, if not maybe tomorrow. So we'll get the brakes knocked out after that, get the drive shafts and some new U-joints in them, and get this thing back on the ground, hopefully back on the road. First up, let me get this oil pan done, and then we'll kind of see what we need to do after that. Well, as you can see, it actually looks a little bit different now, and I'm going to explain why real quick. So if you look, all the bodywork has been done on it now. I've got the bodywork done on this quarter, and this quarter has been welded on, bodywork on it, and now we have the front fenders on it. Now, this is now going to be, all this happened in what's now the last episode. So when I was waiting for parts to come in, because the fuel tank, actually when I poured it out, it was green, the gas in it was green. So I had to go through and get a new fuel tank for it, which I actually have right here. As you can see, here's the brand new fuel tank for it. So because I had to get a new fuel tank for it, I decided to take the time to bring it all aside, bring it out here, as you can tell by the giant mess of paper and filler and all that. I decided to go ahead and do the body work on it in what was now the last episode instead of the disc brake episode being the last one. So now that that's actually done, I can move forward on this, and I will get it running and driving now. And you might see it, where the rest of this is being filmed, to get flashed into like primer. And that's because I've got a nice day coming up and I really want to go ahead and get this thing knocked out in primer. But I don't know how things are going to work now, honestly. Let's be honest with you, because I thought I had everything ready to go, and then it turned out we needed a fuel tank and all this. So next up on it, I'm going to go ahead and get the rear brakes done. So I've already got the wheels off here, and I've got everything set, ready to go. I took this apart a long time ago. I've got the new drums, and I've got a few other parts all brand new. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the drum brakes next. So then I can go through and get all the plumbing done for brake lines, all that, get all that knocked out. So then I can get the fuel tank in there easier after that, get that plumbed, and really after that we just got a few things to wire up, and we should be ready to go. And then of course get the new U-joints and the drive shafts, all that. That'll come later. That'll probably be off camera anyways. So first off, let's go ahead and get these rear brakes done, and then we'll, as always, go from there, see what we need to do next. But that's where I'm kind of shooting right now, is brakes, gas, plumb, fire up, see what we got, and then get it to move down the road. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. So this will be running before we know it. So let's get these rear brakes done. Well, scratch that. So I was getting ready to do these rear brakes, and of course I got them cleaned up, got the new wheel cylinder on, and then I pulled the new shoes out. When I pulled the shoes out, I set them up there, and then I went and pulled the old ones out, which I actually don't have it out anymore. I pulled one of the old ones out and realized I actually had the wrong ones, and since the shoes are wrong, I grabbed the drums out and realized that I have the wrong drums as well. So now I'm gonna have to wait again to finish up these rear brakes. I've actually got the shoes will be in later today, so that's good. However, I won't have the drums till later this week. It's Monday right now, and I'm looking at probably Thursday or Friday to get those in. So because of that, it's going to slow me down a little bit, as always, but I will tell you something right now. All those shows and everything you see about people building these cars in a week or building them in a month or whatever, all of that is a lie if they are actually having to get the parts as they go, because there's no way that you can guarantee to have all the parts you need in that short amount of time. Especially for like us being a small town out in West Texas, we don't get parts that quickly. We're not that close to Dallas. We're definitely not close to most of the suppliers out in California. So that creates some problems there. But yeah, just it's kind of part of it. If you're ever building one of these classic cars, especially one of these classic Scouts, be prepared to wait for parts and all that. Of course, we have great suppliers we use, but you know, it always takes some time, especially with everything that went on last year. So because I'm waiting on those, I'm actually going to go ahead and put the other wheel cylinder in on this side and get this cleaned up over here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the new wheel cylinder in, and then I want to go ahead and actually plumb these brakes. That way, once I have the drums, I'm ready to put these back together and get that done. So that way I'm ready to go. Don't really have to sit around and rebuild the brakes and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this side, the brake booster on this side, and then start with the fuel, brake lines. Sorry, not fuel lines. I get the brake lines in, and then I'll go from there and probably just work on the fuel system. So a little bit of a setback, but it's part of it. Like I said, kind of expect it. You should expect the unexpected most of the time anyways, especially building one of these. So let me get these brake lines done, and then I'll probably just check back in once I get those plumbed, and then I'll start working on getting the gas tank in, because I've got to do a few things there. So I'll check back in once I get these brake lines done, and then we'll kind of go from there and see where we're at. All right, so another little setback on the brakes, which is no surprise, honestly. So it turns out I'm actually missing the brake line, rear brake line. Or brake hose, sorry. I thought I had it, but it turns out I had fronts. I didn't have the rear yet. So after I dealt with that, I did get the fuel line ran. As you can see here, we had an old plastic line. You can kind of see right there on the floor. That's what was up in there before. So now I've got this brand new metal line run all the way to the front. Looks real nice. No more blocking, you know, no more seeing any line out here. So that'll look nice and clean. And then I've got it run up here, ready to go. I've got a new line actually going up from the pump. I got to get a fitting here so I can run hose just real short right there. And then I'll do fuel lines and all that, and fuel filter up in the top. So after I got that done, I actually started working on getting this fuel tank set in. I have it sitting here. I have it ready to go. So I actually got this bracket off of the old floor, and the old floor piece is sitting right over there on the floor. So I got that off, and now I'm gonna weld it in. And I've been sitting here actually debating how I wanted to do it, and came up with the best solution for right now, and it should work pretty well. I'm working by myself today, so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go up top and measure from my spot welds back 6 inches or 5.5 inches. One of the two. I'll double check before I get up there once I get this set exactly where I want it. And then I'm going to drill holes in the floor so I can spot weld this. This bracket here is actually 6 inches wide, so therefore I know I have 6 inches of play. So I'll have 5.5 from here and then 6 inches there. And I'll go ahead and go across and I'll measure where it's at in terms of the frame rails and everything inside. Get all my points that I want to work off of and do it that way. And then of course I've got it just hanging right here where the skid plate goes right now, but I just have that so it'll actually hold it up. So what I'll do is I'll lower this on the ground, start measuring everything out, and then I'm actually going to put a jack underneath that bracket and hold that up, and then I can get the holes drilled, get that welded in pretty quick. After I get that welded in, then of course I'm going to undercoat all this so it's nice and clean and ready to go all the way around. And then I'll get these hoses replaced and all that since I have brand new ones. Then that tank should be ready to put up in there and get all that plumbed. And then I can finally start working on that engine since I'm still waiting on some brake parts. And, you know, hopefully we get some on that pretty soon. So after doing the gas tank, I realized that this was going to be a little bit of a longer episode, especially to get it running and driving. So I kind of thought to myself, what would be the best way to finish off this part 1 of the episode of getting it running and driving? And I thought of only one good way to do that, and that would be to let everyone hear this thing run again, finally, after quite a few months, and also run properly, just to show all the people from episode 1 that, you know, hounded me for not getting it running right, prove that I do know how to get these things running. So I've actually got some gas in the carb. I filled it up. I'm having some problems with fuel, getting fuel right now. For some reason the fuel pump doesn't seem like it's pumping, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. But I got some gas in the carb, and to end this episode, I really just want to fire it right up, let everyone hear it run. I've actually had it run a little bit just a few minutes ago, and it sounds really good, especially since it has no exhaust. So let's show you what we got here, and I'll get this thing running for you. A little bit of gas. See, I do know what I'm doing. I had to put a little bit of gas in the carb, nothing too big. So there you go. There you go. This thing's finally running again. Sounds great. I knew that motor was going to be healthy, and I'm glad that we can finally hear it. So next, on the next episode, I'll get the rear brakes done, get some drive shafts in, get the brakes bled, figure out that fuel system, and pretty soon we will have this thing running and driving next episode. So check back probably next week, honestly, when this thing's finally back on the road again. But that'll do it for today's episode. As always, check us out on Instagram at Must Have Classics and Facebook at Must Have Classics Ralls, R-A-L-L-S. And we'll see you in the next episode. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This thing's about to move along super quick. We're really expecting to have this thing running and driving next week and have it painted, or get first part of paint on it, like the jams and everything, probably by the end of next week, as long as the weather cooperates. It's West Texas, you never quite know. It's like 60 degrees right now. We're expecting like 2 or 3 inches of snow on Sunday. So yeah, it's West Texas. So that'll do it for today. And as always, get those classics out and enjoy them as much as you can. We'll see you next time. Well, when I said that weather was going to be a problem, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But, I mean, honestly, I can't even see the blazer over here. On the bright side, I got my bucket. It's time to make some snow ice cream. That'll do it for today.